Imagine a world where reaching peace feels like catching smoke, but holding on to it, that's the real battlefield. Can European boots on the ground truly stop Vladimir Putin from shredding agreements like old treaties? The air thickens with tension as Ukraine braces for what comes next. Heartbeats echo in war-torn streets, dust kicking up under hurried steps, the scent of gunpowder mingling with rain-soaked earth. Allies whisper doubts, fearing Putin's words are just polished lies. Yet, in this fragile dance, security guarantees shine as the glimmer of hope. European forces gear up, countdown ticking like a doomsday clock. The UK leads the charge in the coalition of the willing, a group vowing to do anything, even send soldiers, to lock in lasting peace. Defense Secretary John Healey just lit the fuse in London on October 20th. If Donald Trump brokers peace, he declared, we'll stand guard for years. Healey didn't stop there. In that same speech, captured by the BBC, he unleashed more. UK troops are primed, not solo. Partners in the coalition nod approval. For months, plans brewed, over 200 military minds from 38 nations plotting, ready to mobilize at the go-ahead. The UK? Shelling out big bucks, over £100 million, about $133 million, to march in. But here's the twist, soldiers only if it's truly for Ukraine's good. Kyiv decides terms, if Russia bullies through unfair deals, no boots land. Instead, forces might clash with Putin himself. Feel that chill? The sound of distant engines rattling, skin prickling as reality bites. In the last twist, UK soldiers get teeth-grinding authority, a jab at Putin labeling Britain his top foe. Now, shoot down orders for invasive drones over bases, no questions asked. Post-mythical sightings at 4 U.S. shared UK sites in 2024, this shoots first rule bites back. For now, military zones only, yet, BBC hints extend to cities like airports if Kremlin's hybrid sneak attacks escalate. Smell the paranoia, hear the buzz of unmanned invaders? Summarizing the last revelation, European troops hover on Ukraine's borders, under the UK-led coalition banner, poised for action. No shock really, Britain's pioneered Ukraine aid far before. This 26-nation alliance, spawned by UK, bypasses NATO's red tape. Amid bumpy US ties since 2025, this backup could be Ukraine's lifeline. US cooperation hoped for, but not promised. Here's a gut punch, post-Brexit Britain eyes portfolio's European security as payback, forging ties with Germany, France, Italy. Ukraine doesn't sweat motives, it's the pledge that sparks fire in their veins. January's century-long partnership screams confidence in Kyiv's future sovereignty, Putin's defeat penned in ink. But will the people's iron will endure? YouGov data unveils a 75% UK backing for Ukraine's total victory, 69% deeply invested. Yet, 66% fear territorial giveaways, 65% see Russia aggressing again within 10 years. That slight grin of coalition guarantees mocks Putin's bluffs. Building on that public fervor, the coalition's plans remain cloak and dagger. Over 200 planners crafting deployments with Ukrainian consent. Speculation swirls, peacekeepers akin to UN roles, stepping between sides. The hum of armored vehicles reverberates, wind whipping flags, boots crunching gravel as unity forms. Will Trump seal the deal? Healey drops breadcrumbs without full maps, to protect secrets. In August, DW pondered this fate, a force safeguarding Kyiv's borders. But if peace crumbles, could it morph into invasion? Listen to that uneasy silence, sense of betrayal brewing. Ukraine, exhausted yet defiant, clings to hope's frayed rope. Will Europe uphold the vow? Or does Putin's shadow loom for another chaos act? The stakes rise like desert heat, what if the coalition shatters first? As European nations prepare to strengthen their commitment to Ukraine, a powerful coalition emerges, fueled by the urgent need for security. With the UK at the helm, backing of more than 26 nations solidifies Ukraine's defense. The stakes are high, the cost of deploying troops is projected to exceed £100 million, about $133 million. Yet, there's a vital stipulation, troops will only be dispatched if it serves Ukraine's interests. It's not merely a military alliance but a safeguard for sovereignty, ensuring that the people of Ukraine define the terms of their peace. But what happens if Russia tries to impose a peace proposal that Ukraine finds unacceptable? The coalition promises to stand firm, potentially stationing troops in Ukraine not just for peace but for active defense against aggression. Recently, the UK granted its soldiers new operational parameters, allowing them to act decisively against any drones encroaching on military airspace. This shoot-on-sight directive follows troubling drone sightings near UK bases, highlighting the threat looming in the skies. The implications of these developments resonate deeply across Europe. The coalition of the willing isn't just a strategic alliance, it's a unified front prepared to respond to conflict with resolve. With the UK leading this charge, it reflects a long-standing commitment to Ukraine that predates the current adversities. The geopolitical landscape has shifted, the UK can now act swiftly, often pioneering responses that the European Union subsequently adopts. Why does this matter? Amid uncertainties with the US, Ukraine needs this coalition. Its survival hinges on external support that transcends traditional agreements. The coalition acts independently of NATO, ensuring that Ukraine retains vital allies during tumultuous times. But the drive for peace isn't without its tempests. The UK at the forefront represents more than just military action, it symbolizes a collective European resolve to stand with Ukraine. Initial meetings between UK leadership and Ukrainian officials indicate a swift mobilization of resources, training troops, equipping forces, and ensuring that, despite the chaos of war, the essence of nationhood remains intact. Percent of the UK public fear a forced territorial concession for Ukraine, and 80% want to see it victorious. This overwhelming support underscores the profound connection between the people and their government. It reinforces Britain's commitment as it navigates its post-Brexit identity. Yet, this support comes with a palpable anxiety. Can Ukraine remain sovereign against a determined adversary? Thus, the question remains, what will this coalition's deployment look like? Peacekeepers, combat support, or merely a deterrent? The potential of European troops on Ukrainian soil will redefine interactions and could signify an era of renewed resistance to external adversaries. As plans coalesce, the urgency grows, and the world watches. The countdown to action looms. Will the coalition deliver what Ukraine desperately needs? Only time will unveil the answer, but one thing is certain, the fight for Ukraine's future is far from over. Amid the ongoing struggles and shifting alliances, the future of Ukraine hangs delicately in the balance. As tensions mount, it's vital for Ukraine to secure credible allies. The coalition of supportive nations, spearheaded by the United Kingdom, is rapidly evolving. This alliance is not just a fleeting effort, it aims for solid, long-lasting commitments that safeguard Ukraine's sovereignty against any future threats, particularly from Russia. This coalition, also known as the Coalition of the Willing, comprises both European Union members and non-EU partners, united in a common goal. Their objective transcends immediate struggles, they envision a Ukraine that stands resilient and sovereign well into the future. Recently, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer convened virtually to brainstorm strategies for bolstering this coalition, marking a pivotal moment in their alliance. What started as an idea has transformed into a formidable challenge for Russia's ambitions. As the Atlantic Council notes, the UK frequently leads the charge when innovative support measures are proposed, with other nations following suit. For instance, the UK was the first in Europe to supply long-range cruise missiles and modern tanks, showcasing its proactive stance. The ramifications of the UK's independence from the EU may have lightened bureaucratic hurdles, enabling quicker responses to Ukraine's needs. Yet, the benefits for the UK extend beyond mere foreign policy. Supporting Ukraine reaffirms Britain's standing in global affairs and strengthens ties with major European nations like Germany, France, and Italy. In this intricate geopolitical landscape, Ukraine is counting on these budding partnerships to foster a secure and fair peace. But with guarantees uncertain, Can Ukraine trust that this coalition will genuinely commit to its defense against potential future aggressions? The stakes are monumental, and as the coalition stands poised to act, the world watches with bated breath. Will they rise to the occasion when the signal is given, or will the weight of political dynamics stifle their resolve? As discussions within the coalition intensify, the need for transparency and decisive action grows ever more critical. How far will these nations go to protect Ukraine, and at what cost? Each moment ticks by as the clock winds down toward an uncertain destiny, and the pressure mounts as global watchers await the next move in this high-stakes game. In the shadow of Brexit turmoil, the UK has emerged as a power player, by championing Ukraine's cause. Imagine the bitter sting of economic isolation, replaced by the warmth of renewed bonds, with heavyweights like Germany, France, and Italy. This isn't just aid, it's a bridge over fractured ties, built on the battlefield's unforgiving roar. As the Atlantic Council notes, the UK's unwavering backing for Ukraine's struggle has mended old rifts, forging steel alliances with these giants of Europe. Now, picture Ukraine watching this dance of diplomacy, heartbeat pounding, wondering why the UK stands so fiercely, when others waver in the storm. Why would the UK risk everything for a distant forge? Ukraine doesn't question the why, it clings to the how much. The UK has just roared its readiness, to Putin and the world, echoing through artillery's distant rumble. In Ukraine's darkest hour, this vow feels like a lifeline, yanked from the jaws of despair. Even greater relief floods in, as it seems the UK won't falter, its show of support standing firm. Proof lies in that January pact, the 100-year partnership between Ukraine and the UK, designed not just for headlines, but to proclaim Ukraine's survival, long after this war's ashes settle. To crown Ukraine sovereign, Russia must crumble in its imperial grab, a century of unity promising everlasting shield against Putin's grasp. Yet, Ukraine understands the people's will is the true armature, steeling every stand. It's that fiery resolve, Ukraine's hidden blade, driving the resistance against Russia, as citizens recoil from the Soviet-era's frigid grip, the acrid smoke of oppression clinging to every memory. In Britain, the people's pulse beats for Ukraine too, according to YouGov's Pulse, that global oracle of minds. Fewer now doubted just peace for Ukraine than at year's dawn, amid the thrum of uncertainty. A staggering 66% fear Ukraine might cede land under duress, and crucially, 57% would lash out negatively at such betrayal. Simply put, most Brits believe Ukraine shouldn't be bullied into surrender. The same veins reveal 65% foresee Russia's march again, within 10 years of any accord, underscoring the coalition's ironclad vow. And here's the heartstopper. 80% of Britons crave Ukraine's triumph. Of those, 87% care profoundly, a fair bit or deeply, tallying 69% who both wish victory and invest heartfelt emotion. This tidal wave of sympathy, from a land untouched by Russia's boots, builds an unbreakable levee against shifting tides. But twist the lens abruptly, this UK fervor isn't purely selfless. Post-Brexit Britain claws back influence, a major bulwark in Europe's defense theater. Yet for Ukraine, intentions fade beside actions, the commitment burns bright. Allies stand poised, boots thudding in readiness, ready to humiliate Putin's schemes of peace phrase. Could Russia truly strike back so soon, shattering hopes anew? As the coalition gears for action, with plans honed by over 200 planners from 38 nations, over 6 months of whispers, the mighty UK pledges over $133 million. About £100 million for deployment, but only if Ukraine approves, a shield tailored to its cries. If Russia shoves unacceptable terms, troops might flood in, not as guardians, but as warriors against Putin's fury. Imagine the clash, drones humming ominously over bases. UK soldiers now granted site-free shots, no pleas for permission, after eerie sightings at 4 airfields, including those US shared in 2024. Though limited to military skies now, echoes hint at expanding to civilian veins, like airports, if Russia's hybrid blitz escalates. Under the UK's banner, the coalition of the willing rallies. 26 nations untethered from NATO's web, vital amid turbulent U.S. ties since 2025's dawn. Fueled by virtual summits between UK PM Keir Starmer and Zelensky since March, they've evolved from spark to wildfire, thwarting Putin's Ukrainian dreams. The UK often leads, first with cruise missiles, then tanks, the EU trailing like a shadow. Freed by Brexit's cut cords. Britain moves swift, as the Atlantic Council underscores, solidifying post-vote stature, smoothing tensions into partnerships. Ukraine's eyes glaze over Georgetown motives, fixated on the pledge, the UK signaling readiness to summon forces when beckoned. Will this force mirror UN peacekeepers, or bullier sentinels? Details stay veiled, to guard Ukraine's strategy, but speculations swirl, like autumn leaves in a gale. Could Putin endure, as Europe masses, or will his empire fracture, exposed in the light? The weight churns, every second a blade. Portentous rumors suggest European contingents configuring combat units. NATO echoes dampened, yet fears linger of escalation. Would boots erupt conflict anew, or deter Putin's aggression? Hollowness gnaws at this gamble, but Ukraine's spirit, honed by suffering, may tip the scales. As Healy's words echo, peace beguiles easily, securing it demands vigilance. If Trump brokers accord, Europe stands primed, troops in line, guaranteeing perseverance, not illusion. Ukraine fends off sovereignty's siege, with allies' brutal commitment, humiliating aggressors' claims. Can this tapestry unravel resentment, or weave enduring peace? The drone of anticipation grows louder, shrouding fates. What unheard cataclysm hides next? With the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, the UK is prepared to take serious action. Recent surveys reveal that a staggering 80% of the UK population supports Ukraine in its struggle, with 69% holding a deep concern for its ultimate victory. This strong backing underscores why the coalition of willing nations, led by the UK, is essential in ensuring Ukrainian sovereignty remains intact. However, what will this potential deployment look like? The UK's Defence Secretary, John Healey, confirmed that plans for troop deployment are already in place. At least 200 military planners from multiple nations have contributed to these efforts. The anticipation is palpable. But the details remain shrouded in mystery. Will these forces act as peacekeepers akin to United Nations troops, or will their role take a more aggressive stance? Throughout the months, as negotiations have unfolded, Europe has had to weigh the consequences of any peace deal carefully. A mere 65% of the UK population believes another conflict could erupt within 10 years if an unfavorable agreement is reached. The looming question is, what will the security guarantees entail to avoid future aggression? Imagine the tense atmosphere in a meeting room, filled with maps and strategies, where decisions could dictate the future of nations. The air is thick with the smell of coffee and anxiety as military leaders hash out potential deployment strategies. Each plan could mean the difference between lasting peace and another cycle of violence. The coalition isn't merely about immediate support, it aims to establish a long-term relationship with Ukraine, promising stability and defense against potential threats. The UK's backing serves a dual purpose, bolstering Ukrainian resolve while showcasing its own commitment to international diplomacy. As discussions continue, Healey made a stunning remark, suggesting that if peace could be brokered by a prominent world leader, the coalition would be ready to act, ready to protect. But what lies ahead? Will these troops serve as guardians or combatants? The outcome of these deliberations holds significant weight, not just for Ukraine, but for Europe as a whole. In a world where alliances can shift overnight, the steadfast resolve of Ukraine's people becomes its strongest weapon against oppression. They refuse to return to a dark past. The stakes couldn't be higher as the UK readies its forces. The clock is ticking and the question remains, will peace take hold, or will the threat of conflict loom larger than ever? Underlying every discussion is the hope that the coalition of the willing will offer more than just support. It must secure a future for Ukraine, ensuring that its people can live freely, without fear of looming shadows. The path forward is fraught with uncertainty and complexity, demanding unwavering commitment and bold action. How will history remember this moment? Only time will tell if the coalition can bring about the peace that so many are yearning for. Will the UK and its allies stand firm in their resolve to protect Ukraine, or will they falter in the face of adversity? The narrative is intricately woven, and the resolution is still being crafted in the hearts and minds of the people involved. The question remains, can the world rise to meet the challenge and secure enduring peace? In a world fraught with the uncertainty of war, can peace truly be more than just a fleeting dream? Negotiating peace between Ukraine and Russia is a daunting challenge, but sustaining that peace is an even tougher battle. As peace talks unfold, a question lingers: how can Ukraine secure long-term guarantees in a landscape where promises often fade away? The urgency of the situation grows as reports surface of European troops preparing to enter Ukraine. The UK, leading a coalition of nations, stands at the forefront of this development, ready to make a bold move. UK Defence Secretary John Healey has voiced the coalition's commitment during a stirring address delivered on October 20. Healey has made it clear, if President Trump can broker a peace, we will stand ready to secure it. But what does securing peace really entail? Troops from the UK and other allied countries are prepared to deploy, and plans developed by over 200 military strategists from more than 38 nations signal that Europe is primed for action as soon as a peace deal is in sight. Financial commitments are on the table too. The UK foresees spending over £100 million, equivalent to approximately $133 million, on troop deployment in Ukraine. Yet there's a catch: these troops will only be committed if it aligns with Ukraine's interests. The Ukrainian people must have the final say in negotiations, ensuring they will not be cornered into unfavorable agreements. If Russia attempts to impose terms, the coalition stands firm, risking engagement to protect Ukraine's sovereignty. Amidst this tension, new powers have been granted to Ukrainian soldiers, sending a painfully clear message to Putin: the UK is seen by the Kremlin as a formidable opponent. British forces now operate under a shoot-on-sight directive against any unauthorized drones breaching their airspace, a reaction to reported drone activities in early 2024. This evolving mandate reflects growing concerns over potential escalations and the need to defend national integrity. What looms ahead is the potential deployment of troops under the coalition's banner. The landscape for European involvement in Ukraine is rapidly transforming. Reports suggest that European soldiers might assume peacekeeping roles, akin to UN forces, although such a position demands a neutrality that does not exist in this intense conflict, as noted by Raphael Loss from the European Council on Foreign Relations. A peacekeeping mission might involve lightly armed troops stationed along contact lines, poised to monitor compliance with ceasefires. Yet, could this be enough? Alternatively, discussions have emerged around a combat-ready force. This wouldn't mean immediate engagement with Russia, rather, it's about preparedness. European soldiers would enter Ukraine in peacetime, ready to respond should tensions flare once more. The plan aims to deter further aggression from Moscow, with projections suggesting that up to 150,000 troops may be necessary for such a deployment. The numbers paint a compelling picture. Europe boasts around 1.5 million troops, suggesting that approximately 10% may need to remain in Ukraine should the combat-ready strategy come to fruition. But will nations exhibit the willingness to carry on with this plan? The stakes have never been higher as the coalition plots its course. The UK's leadership in forming this coalition underscores its commitment to European security and Ukraine's future. As President Zelensky discusses strategies with UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, it's evident that this coalition has rapidly transformed from an abstract notion into a tangible threat to Putin's ambitions. With each passing day, the urgency to act intensifies. Can the coalition present a united front and ensure Ukraine's survival in this conflict? The fate of a nation hangs in the balance as Europe must navigate alliances and prepare for the unexpected, all while keeping a vigilant eye on a restless Russia. The question lingers: when the smoke clears, will Ukraine emerge as a sovereign entity, or will it fall victim to lingering shadows of oppression? Time is of the essence, and the world watches closely. The will of Ukraine's people, fueled by their hope for freedom, stands as an indomitable force in this unfolding saga. As the potential for deployment draws near, where will this journey lead? Europe stands ready, but will it dare to tread the path of righteousness amid the chaos? In the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, the notion of negotiating a lasting peace is cloaked in complexity. While discussions progress, there's an ever-present tension. Will these negotiations yield genuine security for Ukraine, or will they lead to further manipulation by Russia? Recent developments suggest a beacon of hope as the UK prepares to lead a coalition that promises military support for Ukraine, but will it be enough to withstand the Kremlin's tactics? Imagine the weight of uncertainty hovering in the air as Ukraine grapples with its future. On one side, the promise of European troops ready to step in, and on the other, the lurking shadow of Russian hostility. From London, UK Defence Secretary John Healey has proclaimed that the UK stands ready to assist in maintaining peace once an agreement is reached, revealing plans that span over 6 months and involve more than 200 military strategists from nearly 40 nations. The stakes are high. What does the phrase, "to secure peace for the long term," truly mean? Healey emphasized that if former President Trump can broker a temporary ceasefire, the UK and its allies are prepared to act. The coalition, dubbed the Coalition of the Willing, seems determined, but this ambition is complicated. They will not send troops without the consent of Ukraine and must ensure that any agreement honors Ukraine's sovereignty. One wrong move from Russia could arguably ignite further conflict, turning a supposed peace deal into a battlefield. With the UK at the forefront, the coalition is positioned as a formidable ally. This partnership, crafted to provide essential support independent of traditional NATO frameworks, reflects a collective commitment to safeguarding Ukraine against future incursions. The UK has already committed over £100 million, around $133 million, for this effort, signaling that they are serious about bolstering Ukraine's defense capabilities. But what lies ahead? As Healey has hinted, the framework set in place leaves room for significant military deployment. Amid talks of overseeing a watchful presence, the coalition could also extend its operations to aerial support, reminiscent of NATO's air protection measures. This shift towards proactive monitoring could thwart Russia's hybrid warfare strategies, instilling a sense of security among the Ukrainian populace. Yet, challenges loom large. Disagreements within the coalition remain an obstacle, driven by a shared desire to sidestep direct confrontation with the Kremlin. This hesitance raises questions about the effectiveness of any potential military presence in Ukraine. Could it be sufficient when faced with Kremlin's relentless pursuit of power? It's crucial to note the underlying tension. Russian approval would dictate any deployment, creating a paradox where the need for security is countered by the Kremlin's unwavering skepticism. As discussions unfold, the risk of Russian vetoes complicating progress looms large. A scenario reminiscent of past negotiations surfaces. Will the coalition's ambitions falter under the weight of Russian opposition? From unexpected alliances to the fragile fabric of peace. The narrative is further complicated by public sentiment in the UK. A recent poll indicated strong support for Ukraine among its people. Nearly 80% are rooting for Ukraine's victory, meaning the tide of public opinion could influence the government's decisions. Yet, awareness of potential territorial concessions makes supporters uneasy, drawn into a whirlwind of fear and determination to uphold Ukraine's sovereignty. With each passing day, the countdown to potential troop deployment inches closer. As anticipation hangs thick in the autumn air, will the coalition act decisively, or will hesitation reign supreme? The saga is not merely one of wars waged, it's an emotional fight for identity, freedom, and the undying will of a people unwilling to embrace a return to darkness. Will the coalition rise to meet the challenge, or will they succumb to the paralyzing grip of indecision? The world watches, waiting for a sign that this fragile hope won't shatter amid the whirlwind of geopolitical strife. Transitioning from conflict to resolution is fraught with danger, but one thing is certain, both Ukraine and those who stand beside it are ready to fight for their future. Imagine the searing sting of betrayal in the icy Alaskan winds, where a president's handshake with Putin shatters illusions of peace, casting shadows over Europe's trembling plan to shield Ukraine, and igniting a storm of defiance from Russia's ironclad foreign minister. Can Moscow's fiery rejection truly derail the iron will of nations ready to clash? Or will this spark a global reckoning that humbles Putin like never before? Whispering echoes of power lingered in the crisp air of Alaska, as President Trump's meeting with Putin sent shockwaves rippling across the world. The touch of frost on windswept faces mirrored the chill in diplomatic hearts, leaving Europe's coalition scrambling for a foothold in securing peace for battered Ukraine. Suddenly, Sergei Lavrov's voice boomed through the turmoil, denouncing any European troop deployment as blatant foreign meddling, a declaration that twisted the knife deeper into an already fragile truce. You feel that prickling unease, the scent of tension thickening like smoke, as Russia slammed the door on neutrality demands. Remember how this neutrality riddle claws its way back, erupting now in this explosive standoff. What will the UK and its allies choose in this fractured reality? In an ideal hush, a fair deal blooms. Russia nods to Europe's troops flooding Ukraine, guardians of enduring calm. But that dream fades, dwarfed by a stark twist. The coalition charges forward anyway, boots echoing defiance against Putin's rage, risking a cataclysmic surge of fury. And yet, it might be the lifeline needed. As true peace slips through trembling fingers. Why the urgency in John Healey's words on October 20th? Trump's scheduled summit loomed, a dance with Putin in Hungary to weave peace strands. Hence the nod to Trump's role in forging accord. The U.S. leader, a whirlwind of shifting sands these past weeks. On September 23, he pledged allegiance to Ukraine's full victory, clawing back every sliver of its land. But as Hungary beckoned, whispers turned to freezing battle lines, surrendering the blood-soaked Donbass to Putin's grasp, a surrender Ukraine rejects with fiery resolve. In Zelensky's presence, after flaunting this bitter seed, Trump murmured to the press, "I don't think they will," when probed on victory's flame. They could still seize it. "I never vowed it." War breathes chaos, disaster spiral unbidden. Words that leave lips tingling with doubt, minds racing through the chaos. Ultimately, Trump's waverings dissolve into the void. The Hungarian talks crumble entirely, telegraphing on October 21 their utter collapse. The coarse rumble of slammed doors, the bitter aftertaste of failure, begs the question, will this derail the coalition's armor, or thrust them into a humiliating stand against Putin's tyranny? And what hidden dagger might Russia unleash next, turning this rejection into a symphony of global degradation for those daring to oppose? The air thickens with the metallic tang of unresolved fury, each breath a reminder that beneath the calm facade, oblivion lurks, ready to unravel empires. Did Lavrov's salvo just expose Putin's brittle core? Or will it stoke a wildfire that engulfs them all in unexpected agony? In a world teetering on the brink of conflict, the shadows of diplomatic negotiations loom large. The proposed peace talks between Russia and the United States, pivotal for Ukraine's future, have been abruptly scrapped, sending ripples of uncertainty through Europe. Tensions flared during a phone conversation between Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. While the U.S. painted this encounter as constructive, Lavrov's assertions revealed a reluctance to concede as Russia dug its heels in on its demands. Why would Russia insist on maintaining its stance, especially when the prospect of peace hung in the air? Could it be a sign of confidence, or was it desperation cloaked in bravado? Reports from the Telegraph unveiled that the ceasefire terms suggested by the U.S. were dismissed outright, indicating a significant impasse. It seemed boggling that, with so much at stake, Russia was unwilling to halt its military advance. The anticipation surrounding the meeting in Hungary evaporated, leaving the political atmosphere charged with uncertainty. As Europe grapples with this halted progress, the UK's coalition of willing nations stands prepared. Their readiness to deploy troops into Ukraine, if required, reignites hope, yet, such action could provoke an all-out confrontation with Russia. In this precarious moment, time ticks away. How much longer will Europe tolerate Russian aggression, and what happens when the economic clock strikes midnight for Russia? Amidst these ultimate stakes, the hearts of the Ukrainian people beat fervently against the tides of tyranny. The resolve of the coalition remains unwavering, but will it be enough to deter defiant Russia? Will Europe pay the price of peace with soldiers on the ground? Only time will reveal if they can turn the tide, quell the storm brewing in Eastern Europe, and protect the sovereignty of Ukraine. As we delve deeper into this saga, we'll explore how alliances are formed in the furnace of war and how the echoes of past battles shape future destinies. Stay tuned for the next chapter in this unfolding drama. In a world filled with uncertainty, the tension between Ukraine and Russia remains palpable. As we explore the complexities of securing peace in this region, we uncover a troubling reality, maintaining that peace might be the biggest challenge yet. With a coalition of nations rallying behind Ukraine, the stakes have never been higher, and decisions made now will shape the future for generations. What if Europe was ready to take action, regardless of Russia's response? As the UK, at the helm of the coalition of the willing, solidifies its commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty, the countdown is officially on. Defense Secretary John Healey's recent speech ignited discussions about the readiness of European troops to deploy rapidly should peace negotiations stall or falter. But will these nations stand together, or will internal conflicts tear them apart? A small catch complicates matters: the coalition's support hinges on Ukraine's best interests. While the idea of foreign forces stepping in could bring comfort, it also raises questions. What happens if Russia defies the coalition? Healey emphasized that if the proposed peace agreement did not favor Ukraine, the coalition would refuse troop deployment, but could that non-action lead to greater conflict? Fears of escalation loom large. The coalition must now navigate the fine line between peacekeeping and provoking aggression. As Trump prepares for a meeting with Putin, the stakes have never been higher, and perceptions of Ukraine's potential to emerge victorious are shifting. Just days before the meeting, uncertainty looms over the proposed discussions. And tensions escalate further with reports that Russia rejects critical ceasefire conditions. As we analyze the intentions of the coalition and their strategies, the resilience of Ukraine's citizens shines through. Weekly polling reveals that support for Ukraine within the UK remains robust, with a resounding majority believing in Ukraine's sovereignty. However, questions linger. Can that public sentiment truly shape the outcome? While the UK pledges unwavering support for Ukraine, whispers of a possible standoff grow louder. If the coalition decides to act against Russia without a finalized peace agreement, what could be the implications? If European troops set foot in Ukraine amidst ongoing combat, might they be stepping into a much larger conflict, or could their presence serve as a deterrent? As we ponder this precarious situation, the weight of history bears down. With only 18 months left before a potential economic collapse ravages Russia, the countdown intensifies. Will we witness a decisive moment where stability emerges, or will tensions escalate further into chaos? Join us as we dive deeper into these unfolding events and explore the gravity of choices made on both sides. The road ahead is fraught with challenges, but one fact remains clear: the fight for Ukraine's future is far from over.